folks. Once again, good morning, and thank you for joining us here at New College. If you've already checked in and registered, please go ahead and find a seat. We're going to get started in just a moment. Once again, if you've already checked in, please come over and take a seat. We want to get this thing started.
Good morning.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you would please take your seats. We're going to get started in just a moment. As you take your seats, please focus your attention to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Pat Oker. I'm president of New College of Florida, and it's my real delight to welcome you to our campus. I'm excited that you've joined us at this very important moment for our college and for our community as we begin a unifying year-long initiative to dream big and in innovative ways as we kick off the New College Challenge. Before I share more about the challenge with you, I want to recognize those who serve in leadership positions who are joining us for the kickoff and are either here today or will be joining later on this morning. And we have quite a few. I'm just going to list them here. Thank you so much for being with us. Senator Ray Rodriguez, Senator Jim Boyd, Senator Joe Gruters, Representative James Buchanan, Representative Fiona McFarland, Chancellor of Workforce and Post-Secondary Education at Florida's Department of Education, Kevin O'Farrell, Karen Holbrook, Regional Chancellor, University of South Florida, Sarasota Manatee, Stephen High, Executive Director of the John and Mabel Ringling Museum of Art, Chris Garvin, Dean of the College of the Arts at University of South Florida, Sally Shelley, District Director for Congressman Vern Buchanan, Board of Trustees Chair Mary Uez and other members of the Board of Trustees, and New College Foundation Board Chair Allison Gardner, and again, other members of the New College Foundation Board of Directors. As you'll see now, the New College Challenge is a path to resilience, social, economic, environmental, at a time when we need it most.
The eye is cleared out substantially.
Venice, Sarasota are in the direct path of Hurricane Ian at this point.
The past few weeks have taken a toll on us all.
We are a community that spent several days looking down the barrel of Hurricane Ian.
First, we faced fears that Hurricane Ian was headed straight here.
We do have hurricane warnings in effect now for Sarasota County.
Then came relief.
National Hurricane Center has shifted that track to the east.
And sadness.
And only the strongest of hurricanes do that.
While we here at New College and in our immediate area did not suffer from the storm's direct impact,
it was scary.
Many neighbors to the south of us,
we thought we were honestly going to lose our lives.
Faced homelessness.
We were just held up in our house.
And destruction.
Luckily, we didn't get hit very hard, but the rest of my community is completely wiped off the map. Estero is an amazing city full of great people who are very focused on family and community and will do anything for you. My name is Emma Helbison. I'm a third year here at New College of Florida.
Students Emma Helbison and Ian Jensen, together with internal leaders and external advisors to New College, has spent the past several months planning a unique initiative.
I was very excited to come back to campus.
Called the New College Challenge.
Because we didn't have power or water for so long, it was just a lifesaver for me personally to come back and be surrounded by people that I know and love in a community that is so welcoming and ready to take on the challenges of the future.
It's always best to solve problems kind of from the inside out.
The New College Challenge is an opportunity for experts within many different fields, as well as students from different colleges, to work together with our campus community to create a more resilient New College for our future.
New College is challenging nationally renowned experts in architecture and design from major research universities, Yale and the University of South Florida, the University of Florida, Syracuse, Keene, and the University of Miami, to help to envision a campus and a college of the future.
It's really about this kind of design approach to solving complex problems. And every one of the faculty leads that we've enlisted has spent their career focusing on complex, community-oriented problems. Resilience is really the ability to manage change.
With support from a class now underway at New College, and input from our community conversations, our partner institutions will teach their own classes about how our campus and community can become more resilient. We'll share these findings in a public exhibition next fall as we emerge from the challenge with a sharper vision of what New College can become. We'll see more clearly how our campus can serve as a community incubator for budding leaders to solve big problems, like how to protect ourselves against the forces of Mother Nature.
If Hurricane Ian taught us anything, it's that it's not a time to play it safe. We have to think and act boldly and be willing to do things differently. The New College Challenge is one of the ways that we can do that. It's our opportunity to partner in new and creative ways with business and community leaders and other universities. We're working together, faculty, staff, students, alumni, and our community, all together to address the issue of resilience on our campus and in our local community, our state, and the nation.
We invite you to engage with us. Offer your input on how we can weather the many challenges we face with collective resilience. Partner with us throughout this endeavor. Invest in us as we nurture the transformational leaders of tomorrow. We're challenging all of us to reimagine together.
I love this state with my entire heart. I can't imagine being anywhere else.
And thank you everyone who contributed to that video. As Elma Halbison shared just now, we are a community ready to take on the challenges of the future. Today, I want to share a story about transformation. It started in 1960 when New College began. New College. Our purpose is built into our very name. As our founders put it, New College was named for a purpose. It is not and never will be another college. It is and will always remain the New College, seeking new solutions to new educational needs. If ever there was a time to embrace new solutions, it is now. Whether through the unprecedented disruptions in the world of work, pressures on higher education, or the urgency of coastal resilience, this is no time for the status quo. Our launch of the New College Challenge today is, at its heart, a commitment to resilience of all kinds and to the transformations necessary to achieve that resilience. Our founders had a clear vision for their new college. They understood that academic excellence was their absolute foundation, but they also knew that attracting the best and the brightest minds was not enough. They wanted to nurture individuals who made a difference in the world, and so they designed a curriculum to achieve that. I've been at New College for just over a year, and I've talked with many people about what makes a New College graduate different. My favorite stories come from people who have hired New College graduates. One that I heard this summer is from an employer who had been struggling with a complex issue in his organization. Frustrated, he gave the problem to a recent hire, a New College graduate, who, as he told me, disappeared for a few days and then came back with a concise description of what the underlying issue was, research on how other organizations had resolved similar problems, and a recommendation of the best course of action. He told me that this hire was still, years later, his best hire ever. New College is and has always been a college committed to nurturing these transformational problem solvers who find solutions when others cannot. This is why we exist, and it's why we do things differently here. It's why we don't assign grades, and why we do encourage intellectual risk-taking. It's why our curriculum is challenging, and why we require students to complete independent projects in all 4 years. Our curriculum isn't designed to sort students into arbitrary buckets, but rather to give them the skills and confidence they need to tackle complex problems, even hard ones like coastal resilience. And the proof is both right here under this tent and in our alumni throughout Florida and the nation. New College are more often than not innovators who find opportunities where others see only challenges. Scientists who have opened up new areas of research. Artists and organizers who have led community development projects. Government leaders who make a real difference in the communities they serve. And entrepreneurs whose businesses have spawned entire new industries. I'm incredibly honored to have with us today all 5 members of the President's Advisory Council who are serving as strategic advisors to the New College Challenge. Their backgrounds are varied, but each of them has led through transformations in finance, nonprofit, energy, and pharmaceutical industries. They understand, and I dare say cherish, the critical thinking and problem-solving skills that they developed in the liberal arts. And they see enormous opportunities for New College. The reason for their optimism and mine is that the world needs problem solvers more than ever. Industries and communities throughout Florida and the nation are experiencing disruptions never before seen. As an honors college, we will never provide huge numbers of graduates. That is not our mission. But we can and must focus on preparing the kinds of transformational problem solvers and leaders required for our region and our nation to thrive. New College is proud to be recognized as a top 5 public liberal arts college in the United States. But if we take seriously the kinds of transformations we are considering, New College can be recognized as one of the best national colleges of liberal arts and science overall, public or private. To realize that potential, however, we cannot simply follow the path of our founders. We have to have the courage and discipline to do things differently. These transformations have already started here at New College. New College students are paired with professional career coaches even before they arrive on campus. Our faculty integrate career outcomes into the curriculum, and we have a goal to provide an internship for every student at New College. This approach to career education and work-based learning has garnered national attention, and it's resonating with prospective students and their families. It's one of the many reasons that our class of new students at New College is up more than 30% over last year, at a time when nationally enrollments are declining. But we need to do more to ensure that this generation of New College students can become the transformational problem solvers of tomorrow. We need new partnerships with employers, our community, and other academic institutions. Becoming a top college of arts and science in the nation is not just a story about New College. It's a story about transformation in higher education itself. The model of liberal arts colleges, dominated by private schools in the Northeast, is unsustainable and disconnected to the economic and demographic shifts taking place in our nation. Florida is poised to become the 10th largest economy in the world by 2030. To achieve that, we need and deserve a top college of arts and science right here in Florida, one that nurtures resilient, transformational leaders. Right now, Florida students who want to attend a top-ranked college of that sort are forced to go out of state for their education. New College can play a key role in retaining this top talent for our state. The New College Challenge is our vehicle to get us there. The design teams that we've invited will help us find new and fresh ways to improve our infrastructure, to ensure that our campus supports our students. The relationships with employers, community members, and other academic institutions we are developing through the challenge will ensure the very resilience of New College. Hurricane Ian was a powerful reminder of the urgency of the transformations that must take place. This destruction has been devastating, but the signs of resilience are everywhere. The Sanibel Causeway is a great example. Cut in pieces by the storm, it has already reopened. The New College Challenge is our own path to resilience. Starting today with all of you over brunch, we'll begin one of many community conversations so that our academic experts have meaningful input, your input. So when they form interdisciplinary student teams for their spring classes, they can focus on bold, viable concepts for New College. Together, we will find solutions we can realize. My vision for the future of New College is one that continues this story of transformation, to create the very best environment for our students who have big, bold ideas and who stand out to employers as the resilient problem solvers of tomorrow. Thank you. I am so pleased now to have some experts in environmental education on community resilience who will now join us in a short panel discussion. Please welcome Taryn Sabia, urban designer and director of the Florida Center of Community Design and Research at University of South Florida. Terry Hansen, president and CEO of the Charles and Marjorie Brancic Foundation. And Kevin O'Farrell, Chancellor for the Florida Department of Education's Division of Career and Adult Education. And our moderator, Anand Paligar, founder of Dream Large Sarasota, with the noble goal of helping nonprofits change the world. Through one of his many initiatives, Partnerships for Greener Spaces, Anand aims to make our community more sustainable. Please welcome our panel.
Hello, everyone. My name's Anand. Welcome to New College. What a glorious morning we're here for. Let's give Dr. Pat Oka a big round of applause. So we have an incredible panel here to talk about resiliency, transformation, and we're covering a few different sectors here, from education to community. I wanted to start, let's go through and meet our panelists. Taryn, you've spent your career studying urban design and development. You have an expertise in community engagement, and in the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, the national media turned to you as an expert on storm surge and mitigation. Chancellor Henry Mack, in your role, actually I'm going to jump to Terry, sorry. You spent more than 20 years leading foundations, and you're responsible for the investment of hundreds of millions of dollars in local nonprofits. I've had the honor of working under you at the Gulf Coast Community Foundation in the transformation you've led in our community. In your current role as the leader of the Brancic Foundation, you're looking for long-term solutions to systematic issues facing our community. And you're also a grandparent here, a grandparent of a first-year student here at New College, Claire. And Chancellor Henry Mack, in your role at the Department of Education, I'm sorry, Chancellor, okay. Sorry, you have no problem. In your role at the Department of Education, you're overseeing all workforce education programs and economic development initiatives for the department. You're also frequently lecturing on the future of workforce and the value of higher education. Taryn, let's begin with you. So we're gathered here at New College. You know, we heard about the pioneering reimagination of what the future of coastal resilience will look like, and also what the model for higher education could be. As one of the academic partners from USF assembling a design studio class for the New College Challenge, tell us why you decided to take on this challenge endeavor and how you see your students both benefiting from and contributing to this initiative.
Thank you. First, we're really excited to be a partner, and the reason for doing it is because we see the students that are coming up through our programs now as the future generation of problem solvers. We're going to need them, their innovation, their creative thinking. They are already concerned about these topics, and to be able to harness that into a capacity toward solving these wicked problems will really be something that we're going to not just be proud of, but that we absolutely will find a necessity. In terms of how the students are going to benefit, it's a great learning opportunity for them to be able to collaborate on a larger scale with other students, with other schools, with communities, with local governments. This is how we're going to see change happen, through major collaborative efforts such as this. And they'll both learn as well as be able to generate new ways of thinking that we haven't considered before.
One of the ways you're doing that is through collaboration, right, between the two student groups. How do you see that collaboration actually playing out in the real world, like between USF and New College?
We see it as an opportunity for a knowledge exchange. They come from different backgrounds, they're in different places, they're taking different courses. And so they can really infuse those conversations and ideas coming from those different disciplines working together. And we think it's going to be a huge benefit in moving things forward.
It's fantastic. Terry, Taryn talked about collaboration. You have collaborated with, I think, just about every organization here in this community. As you look out at the community as a whole, how important is the role of a college like New College in terms of future-proofing this community for some of the changes and challenges we face ahead?
Thank you, Anand. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I have had the privilege of being part of this community for 20 years now, and nothing happens without collaboration. What we have been lacking is in the fact that New College is probably the best kept intellectual secret in town. New College has the opportunity to be the academic and the intellectual epicenter of our community because no one else takes that space. It has all those things here, but no one knows about it. When I say no one, your average person. I have an intern at the foundation who was born here, grew up here, has always lived here, and had never heard of it. You know, that to me is a problem. Other people who come here after they retire, you know, did not raise their children here, they don't know about it. And we really have just a gold mine of intellectual capacity here that could do so much to help this community. And I know the community would welcome this kind of help and this kind of the data that's done here, the research that's done here, just like I said, the intellectual capacity.
Can you speak a little bit to that? You know, we heard President Pat Oker talk about how they are nurturing transformational problem solvers. When you look at the nonprofit community, the talent that this college is putting out there, how can they go about harnessing and benefiting from the students that graduate with this multidisciplinary thinking and ability to problem solve in different ways?
Yeah, I do know that this generation of students are really focused on being part of their community and giving back to their community more so than other generations. So getting them involved in the community while they're students is important. And then having the community of employers, whether they're nonprofit or for-profit or government, understanding the kind of student that graduates from here. The students who graduate from here are not the same as USF Sarasota Manatee or State College of Florida or Ringling College of Art and Design. They're uniquely positioned to do that thinking and solve problems in this community. I've often said I don't understand why New College isn't considered the farm team for McKinsey & Company because of the kind of education they get here and the way they think through problems and solutions and can articulate those solutions.
That's great. Chancellor Kevin O'Farrell, we heard in the video that the Challenge design team is working on the future of campus, but they're also going to consider what higher education needs in the future. I'm curious, in your role, if you could reinvent education today, how would you go about doing it?
Well, I want to say thank you for a question because I can single-handedly reinvent it this morning. I'm excited about that. No, but really, I do want to say thank you for this opportunity. President Oker, thank you so much for putting this together, and thank you all for investing time to be here this morning to contribute to this new challenge and this new opportunity for New College. Let me say that President Oker said something in her opening remarks that I think is something that we need to keep in mind, and it's something that I keep on the forefront of my mind in my role in the Department of Education, primarily working in the area of workforce development with our CTE programming. And that is Florida does have a goal to be the 10th largest economy in the 10th largest economy in the world by 2030. Right now, we're about the 16th largest economy. In order to do that, we're going to need about 1.62 million additional net jobs to propel us forward. The state, by 2030, is going to have about 26 million more residents. We're going to have about 50 million more annual visitors. We're going to have 3.5 million more residents to that 26 million and 3 million more drivers. And hopefully they're all going to be in Miami because I don't want them over in this side of the town here. But there's going to be big transformation. So the question is, how do we prepare for that and where do we go? And what do we think about higher education? I think this is something that's important, that we're understanding what industry is sharing with us and where we're at. We're moving past this kind of technological revolution that we have. We're in it. Technology is seamlessly part of who we are. It is truly more of a utility rather than a luxury. I can tell you when we looked at resiliency and sustainability after Hurricane Ian, you'll remember a few years ago we had Irma, and there were incredible infrastructure improvements that were made in grids in the affected areas down in Southwest Florida. But they still had a massive impact because, you know, what people were looking for was that internet capacity, right? So that fiber optics that weren't necessarily involved in those integrations as we're trying to get back. But my point is, we're moving out of a technological revolution into a knowledge-based, skills-based economy. And a knowledge-based, skills-based economy requires a different kind of workforce. And so this is where I think New College can really be poised because of its size to be able to be responsive to that. We really need to begin to see more competency-based assessment in terms of education, not tied and tethered to the time in seat, the 3-credit-hour, 16-week, this is what it takes in order to gain competency or proficiency in a particular subject. We need to invite students to be involved in their learning experience, provide them the opportunity to have that competency-based assessment based on skills, and progress them forward. The same thing that we talk about with learners who are returning to our higher education institutions to upskill or reskill. We need to have prior learning assessments that give them credit for the work that they've had in the workplace that may not necessarily transfer into a 3-credit course hour, but we need to work on that because we know that we need those workers, we need them positioned, we need workers who understand what we've already mentioned. One of the hot words is collaboration and the interdisciplinary nature of how you solve problems, because without that, you won't get anything done. And we need more individuals who understand that, appreciate that that's infused in their learning environment, because in doing so, you're going to have better prepared, well-rounded, skills-based individuals who are ready to be contributors to society.
So you spoke about it at an institutional level. How about at a student level? You know, I heard in the video that resiliency is your ability to adapt to change. What could students do to adapt to, you know, the world that they're about to inherit, you know, post-graduation? Do you have any tips or advice for the students that are in the audience?
Well, tips and advice for the students and anyone else. Here's one thing that we have to continually infuse into students, and that is the concept of being a lifelong learner. Gone are going to be the days where you think that your particular 4-year degree or your 2-year degree or whatever your initial credential is somehow going to cut it for the future. You know, I make the joke that, you know, I've got a PhD, I've got 2 masters, and I have my undergraduate degree. I have a lot of wallpaper in my office, but that wallpaper has a shelf life. And one thing that I think students need to understand is they're going to get their initial degree, but there is going to be such continuous monumental changes in the workplace, in our society, that you have constantly got to be ready to upskill, reskill, and redeploy your services. This is going to be not just for the students that are coming in, but for those individuals who are in their already positioned within their companies. They're going to have to come back and upskill, reskill. And higher education is going to have a challenge to meet that demand, because we've got to have the effective training in place to meet that demand that employers are going to be looking for. I can tell you this right now. Think about this, and I'll give you one quick example here on the state level. Back in March of 2022, we adopted the state the first set of frameworks for artificial intelligence. We had done several surveys with our business community that now are expecting students, when they graduate, at least 42% of them are asking that they have some basic understanding of artificial intelligence and how it functions in their business model. At minimum, we're talking about chatbots. But when we think about what technology is going to do, like artificial intelligence, deep machine learning, automation, how it is already transforming our manufacturing sector when we talk about Industry 4.0, we are going to have to be institutions of higher learning that provide individuals the KSAs that they need in order to function in a highly globally competitive market. And so to those students, I just want to say, when you walk across that stage and you shake that hand of President Oker, that's not the end, that's the beginning, right? And I think all of us have to have that mindset, because in order for us to be competitive and to be relative, we've got to continue to be upskilling, reskilling, improving ourselves. That's going to build resiliency.
It's great. It's great perspective for students and for all of us in the room, quite frankly. So you talked about, you know, the mindset shift that needs to occur. And I think we're seeing that, of course, in employers. Employers around the world are looking for a different set of skills that are specific to problem solving and also future-proofing business as a whole. You know, and as you look at, if you look at small liberal arts colleges, they're struggling. However, you've got companies like IBM, Target, for example, seeking out alternative majors versus somebody who's taken a singular track, let's say in, for example, engineering. Do you think that shift is, how do you see that shift from each of your perspectives? And I want to start with you, Taryn. Like, what are you seeing as the shift in what employers are looking for and how they're starting to approach the relationship with a college, specifically from your perspective?
So as a School of Architecture and Community Design, we see the field of architecture shifting technologically a lot. Whether it's the programs that we use, the digital, the IT, we're looking at creating digital spaces far beyond what we had in the past, and also doing it long before a building is ever built. So we can test and model those things much more in detail than we've seen. We're, you know, graduating students now who are leaving with technological skills to be able to go into firms and produce at a much higher level. And we're seeing this expand, right? There are still some technological challenges that we face in community design practices, though. When we reach out into communities to do that work, there's a lot of our communities that are disadvantaged and do not have access to technology or the internet. And so we're still using a lot of the practices that we know to be tried and true for engagement. And so being able to create blended models that are going to be able to adapt as communities adapt, and as we can begin to break those gaps in the communities that are behind, that's where we're going to see, I think, a lot of change in the next few years.
Got it. And Terry, how about from your perspective, foundations and nonprofits?
Right. I often get asked, should I go get a master's in nonprofit management or something like that? And I always say no, because that's not what I hire to. I hire to the person, their value system, and I hire to the fact that they can connect the dots and be proactive, and a whole list of personal attributes, nothing to do with what they majored in. They could major in chemistry. I don't care what they major in. That isn't it. That has to be, can they think? Can they connect the dots? Can they look forward? Do they have integrity, service, stewardship, those kinds of attributes?
That's great. And Chancellor, with respect to the state, like, what are you seeing when you talk to employers and the students themselves? Like, how are you closing that gap?
Yeah, so very interesting. Why do you have businesses that are now changing their mindset and hiring people that don't have that business degree, right? Why are they sometimes looking for the philosopher? Why are they looking for the political science background? Why are they looking for the history background? And, you know, President Oker mentioned this in her comments. You know, this is the key. Any business who's worth its weight understands that the future is going to be owned by innovation and creativity. And she had mentioned this whole concept of entrepreneurship, right? How entrepreneurship really is where we're going to see the industries and the businesses of tomorrow. The creative new ways to solve problems, to provide new goods and services. To the point I made earlier, right? If we're not all upskilling, you know, we're basically putting ourselves out. You know, I have all these degrees, but just a couple of years ago, I said, you know what? I'm going to go back and get myself an entrepreneurship certification, right? Because I want to make sure that I'm adopting the mindset that is necessary to see challenges as opportunities. And so what I think New College can continue to do is to invoke and inject this idea of entrepreneurship across all of our disciplines, because it allows people to see things differently. Why is it that that company wants that philosopher? Well, they want that philosopher because they want to have a different mindset and perspective on that particular product or service. And the only way they're going to get that is if they have someone who's coming from that creative space who can start asking questions to get that team to think differently about what it is that they're trying to handle, what they're going to tackle. So I can tell you this in Florida too, and we're really proud of this. Just in the last year, we awarded over 75,000 entrepreneur and small business certifications. That is nearly 1/3 of the amount of ESB certifications that were awarded in the last year in the United States. So we've got about 26,000 that was awarded this last year, which outpaces China by, they're only about 16,000. So think about what's happening in the United States and what's happening in Florida compared to what's happening globally. The reality is that we're in a global competitive market. We need individuals who have that out-of-the-box kind of mindset and thinking, that entrepreneurship, that critical thinking, that collaborative relationships, that interdisciplinary study brings to the sauce, if you will, that we're trying to cook.
You know, just a quick build on what you said. I fully agree with you. As an entrepreneur, I totally agree. But I would also add that there's kind of this shift in thinking towards intrapreneurship, right? How do you innovate inside of a company? How do you create value or new opportunity within it? And I think that's one of the remarkable things that I've seen firsthand. New college students come armed with the skills to do. It's they can look at a problem from multiple angles as opposed to a linear path.
And so many majors now become like tech schools, and what you're really teaching them is 5-10 years ago skills. So don't come to me with old skills, come to me ready to learn new skills and to help us figure out what skills we need to solve the problems in the community.
Really great point, Derek. So I want to give our panelists a round of applause and thank them. We've run out of time this morning. As you said at your tables, one of the most important assets you can give as part of your experience here is your input. And we hope you'll embark on a dialogue at your table, talk about what you've heard, and there's hosts at each of your tables that are going to take notes, and they're going to be sharing that input with the Challenge academic teams. During brunch, President Oker will welcome our guest speaker, Bill Dudley. And I think for now, we're going to invite you to grab a bite and enjoy some time at your table. Let's give this group another round of applause. They were phenomenal. And thank you all.
Alrighty, folks, we hope you guys had a chance to enjoy some refreshments. Right now, we're going to invite you back to your seats as Pat will take the stage once again. Alrighty, folks, once again, we invite you back to your seats as we welcome the president of New College, Florida, Dr. Pat Oker.
Thank you, everybody. Before we hear from our keynote speaker, I'd like to recognize some important people who are making the New College Challenge possible. I want to thank our lead sponsors, the Kathleen Binnicker Swan Foundation and New College alumnus Jake Short. Jake could not be here, but his sister Jennifer Poole is with us. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you to our, thank you. Thank you to our additional sponsors, the Charles and Marjorie Brancic Foundation, the Florida Climate Institute, as well as our in-kind sponsor, Tropics Landscaping, for these lovely plants. There has been enormous work preparing for this day, and I want to thank many of those who have worked diligently on the planning and implementation, not just of today's event, but the New College in its entirety. First, David Brain and Marcia Crawley, who are the Challenge co-chairs. Marty Hilton, who is with us today, is our strategic advisor to the Challenge and has been a real source of inspiration for all of us. Marty, thank you so much. And I also want to recognize the student interns who have been working, the two student interns in particular, have been working on this project since spring, actually, I think. Emma Halbison and Ian Jensen are both with us today, and also the entire Challenge leadership team. Thank you. A few months ago, I formed a small council of 5 incredible leaders: Bill Dudley, Ann Darby, Norm Worthington, Bob Essner, and Janet Doyle, 3 of whom are New College alumni. They're providing me with tremendous advice and support. Bob and Norm live here. Bill, Ann, and Janet flew in to be part of this event today. I'm so grateful to all of them and the work that they're doing for me and for the institution. It is a treat to have Bill share some words with us today. As former head of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, Bill knows something about facing challenges. He was one of a handful of national leaders working behind the scenes to ensure our nation weathered one of its worst financial crises in our history. Bill is now an advisor to the Griswold Center for Economic Policy Studies at Princeton, and is sought out by the global press to comment on everything from inflation to interest rates to the state of our world economic health. It is my pleasure to introduce Novo Bill Dudley, who will share with us his thoughts on economic resilience.
Thank you, Pat, and I just want to thank everybody who's put all the effort in put this together today. I mean, it's really quite remarkable, and I'm really optimistic about the progress that we're going to make over the next 6 months, year, 5 years, 10 years. We're on the way, and this is a great kickoff event. So I was asked to talk about resiliency, and the definition of resiliency that I found on the internet was the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness, and obviously that's an excellent attribute to have. I don't have expertise on considering resiliency of complex environmental systems one focus surely of the New College Challenge. But I do have some experience with resiliency or lack of resiliency in the U.S. financial system. During the great financial crisis, we saw a financial system that came really to the edge of collapse. Opacity, lack of trust, a regime of negative self-reinforcing feedback loops came very close to pushing us into the second Great Depression. And while we managed to avoid that, the economic downturn was the most severe since the 1930s. And as you remember, the road back to health was long and painful. So what can we learn from that experience in terms of lessons about resiliency? So as I see it, resiliency has many different elements, and I'm not going to give you a complete list because we'd be here all afternoon. So I'm going to list the 8 that I think are perhaps the most significant, and then I'm going to explain to you why I think they're each important. The first is how the system responds to shocks. Second, belief systems. Third, do you have credible backstops? Fourth, do you have transparency or not? Fifth, do you have trust? And what are the consequences when trust is lost? How are your incentives? Are your incentives compatible with the outcomes that you're trying to achieve? What's the culture like? Do you have high ethics, collaboration? Do you have a good culture or one that needs a lot of work? And then finally, risk and uncertainty. The world's a risky place and the world's an uncertain place. And how you deal with risk and uncertainty has a lot to do with how you're going to perform in the future. So let me take each of these in turn and talk a little bit about them. First one was how a system responds to shocks. So I think this is really critical because you can have a system that responds to shocks in a way that the shock is dampened, or you can have a system that responds to shocks where the feedback loop makes the shock worse, bigger and bigger. There was a bridge, I think it was in West Virginia a number of years ago, that was constructed, and soon after its construction, it literally fell apart because when the wind blew, there was a shock that was generated across the bridge, and the harmonics of the bridge were well tuned to the wind, and so when the shock came back, it came back bigger and bigger until the bridge was literally shaken apart. Obviously not the kind of engineering that we seek to emulate. So if the feedback loops are reinforcing, you have a really big problem. And that was really one of the biggest problems of the financial crisis. We had a lot of feedback loops that were reinforcing. So let me give you an example of a feedback loop that was reinforcing. So if you remember going back to the early 2000s, we invented this thing called subprime lending. And that was a way of getting low-income people access to mortgage credit so they could actually buy homes, and people thought that was a pretty good idea, and I think it was. But the way the subprime lending was designed, it was designed in a way that you basically had 2 or 3 year loan at a teaser rate, and then at the end of that time, your interest rate went up substantially. If home prices were rising, you had no trouble refinancing, so you could go get another subprime loan with another teaser rate, and you could keep on going. And if home prices were going up, the lenders didn't experience any losses because people would just refinance the loan and keep going. So what this subprime lending did was increase the demand for houses dramatically because a whole bunch of people could buy houses who couldn't buy houses previously. So home prices went up. As home prices went up, people refinanced. The loss experience on the subprime lending was really low. So it looked like a pretty good regime, except for one thing. Higher home prices lead to more supply. So people reacted to the rise in home prices by building a lot of homes. Home prices peaked, and then those people who had subprime loans didn't have the option of refinancing anymore because they hadn't built any equity in their homes. No more subprime lending, no more demand for homes. Home prices start to fall in value, and the whole situation unwinds very violently. So that was a feedback loop that we don't like. A second issue here is belief systems. So if you have belief systems that turn out to be wrong, you can end up with lots of problems. So I was giving you an example of subprime lending. So when the boom was on, home prices were going up, people looked at subprime loans and said, these are really safe. We're not having any losses. So let's go do more subprime loans. Well, that turned out to be wrong because this thing could only run as long as home prices kept going up. And we all know that nothing goes up indefinitely. Some of the belief systems during the great financial crisis that turned out to be wrong are housing prices can never decline substantially on a national level. Not so true. Subprime lending is sustainable. AAA rated securities are always safe. Not so much. So when those belief systems turn out to be wrong, it's a big shock to all the people who are participating in the regime, and they are surprised. And when they are surprised, they change their behavior discreetly, and so the regime changes very, very violently. A third important issue is: do you have credible backstops or not? Do you have insurance? Is there something to come in and aid you when you're encountering an extraordinary time of stress? So think about the U.S. banking system. U.S. banking system is backstopped in a number of ways. It's regulated by the banking regulators, which require banks to hold capital and liquidity. There are examiners that go out and examine the banks to make sure that they're operated in a safe and sound practice. And backstops exist for depositors in terms of FDIC insurance. FDIC insurance was basically introduced because of the banking runs that happened during the Great Depression. And so with FDIC insurance, you didn't have to worry anymore about whether your bank was solvent or not as a depositor, because you knew if your bank failed, you'd be protected by the federal government. If you don't have credible backstops, you're going to have a big problem. And in the great financial crisis, the backstops existed for the banking system, but they did not exist for the rest of the financial system. And that's really why we had a real big problem. Fourth, transparency. If you don't know who's financially sound or not, you're less likely to engage. You're more likely to pull back. So Bear Stearns is a great example of this. When Bear Stearns had to be rescued by, sort of a shotgun wedding between J.P. Morgan and Bear Stearns, essentially facilitated by the Federal Reserve, they went down very, very rapidly in 1 week. They went from having plenty of liquidity to basically having to be rescued in 1 week. What happened was people didn't want to lend to them because they didn't really know whether the firm was solvent or not. So what happened was for Bear Stearns is a lot of money market mutual funds lent to Bear Stearns against their complex securities that they held. And that was fine. So they were collateralized by the securities, so they were protected by the securities. But it turned out, when they realized that Bear Stearns was in trouble, they didn't really feel protected by the collateral that they held because they didn't actually know how to hold the collateral and liquidate the collateral. So they basically ran when they realized that Bear Stearns could very well fail. So that lack of transparency in terms of what someone is actually worth, that whether they're solvent or not, is very, very important. Fifth, trust. Well, if you don't have trust, you're not going to have a very effective financial system. End of the day, what's the financial system about? It's about basically taking savings and moving it to people who want to make investments. And the only way that transfer can occur is through trusted intermediaries that match the savers with the investors. And if that trust is lost, so I'm not confident giving my money to that intermediary, then that connection is going to fail. And an economy without a well-functioning financial system is an economy that's going to be in a great deal of trouble. Six, incentives, hugely important. Bad incentives lead to bad outcomes. Good incentives lead to much better outcomes. So I don't know how many people here have read the book The Big Short by Michael Lewis or saw the movie. The movie is actually a pretty good description of sort of what went wrong. So if you want to know what went wrong during the great financial crisis, the movie is a really good place to start because it actually is pretty accurate in terms of how he describes what went wrong. So The Big Short highlights mortgage underwriting practices in the state of Florida. And they basically show that the people that were originating the mortgages were compensated on the basis of how many mortgages they originated. So if I'm paying people to originate more mortgages without any controls on quality, what do you think I'm going to get? I'm going to get a lot of mortgages, a lot of low quality mortgages, and that's exactly what we got. So this is a classic example of bad incentives lead to bad outcomes. So you got to really make sure that the incentives in the system are calibrated in a way to achieve the outcomes that you want to achieve. Seventh, the culture. Do people have high ethical standards, or is everybody in it for themselves? I think during the run-up to the great financial crisis, there was a lot of people that were in it for themselves. Also, how well people can work together is really important in terms of dealing with complex problems that may arise. When I joined the New York Federal Reserve from a very different institution called Goldman Sachs. And at Goldman Sachs, it's sort of like whatever it takes all the time. And so most people leave Goldman Sachs by the time they're about 50 because it's really hard to do everything it takes all the time. Keep that up year after year. So when I joined the New York Fed, I was really curious. I'm going from a private sector, pretty brutal culture, not something I would recommend for everybody, to a government institution. What's their culture going to be like? And I have to tell you, I was pleasantly surprised. The culture was very much the same, whatever it takes. If we have to be here all night, we're going to be here all night. There was no going home at 5 o'clock in the afternoon just because the work day was supposedly over. So culture is really important in terms of dealing with any problems that arise. So I think it's really important to work on culture. And if you don't have a good culture, try to make it right. And then lastly, risk and uncertainty, really, really critical for resiliency. You know, people think about this future, think that the future will often be like the past. You know, I've been a little bit critical of the Federal Reserve over the last 6 to 12 months or so because their policy was really well designed for the aftermath of the great financial crisis, but really was not very well designed for the aftermath of the coronavirus pandemic. So you really got to be up to date on what's going on and come up with a regime that is flexible enough to respond to things as they evolve. You can't predict what the future is going to hold. You don't know whether you're going to get a bad hurricane, a moderate hurricane, or no hurricane at all. And so you need to have a regime in place that's flexible enough to sort of take on whatever comes aboard. You know, people tend to underweight the possibility of very extreme events. When I hear people talking about the recent hurricane as a 500-year event, I sort of smile to myself because I'm willing to bet you money that we're going to have several of those 500-year events before the end, maybe before the end of the decade, but certainly before the end of this century. Statisticians call this fat tails. The tails of the distribution are a lot wider than people think. We don't really experience that in real time because even with fatter tails, they don't happen very frequently. So let me sum up. So to make a system more resilient, I think, requires a number of things. One, you need to take a broad view. You have to look at the entire regime. You have to understand how the pieces fit together. Is it a reinforcing feedback loop or is it a dampening feedback loop? Hugely important. Second thing, really important to challenge the conventional wisdom. If a particular assumption turns out to be wrong, what are the consequences of that? And if the consequences of that are really bad, then we need to think about how can we make the consequences of that less catastrophic. Third, it's critical to get the diagnosis right. So it's really important to spend a lot of time figuring out what is actually wrong. What is the problem that we need to solve? Bad diagnosis, bad prescription, bad outcome. So getting the diagnosis right is absolutely critical. Fourth, and this is really hard to do, when weaknesses are identified, really important to fix them beforehand rather than after the fact. You know, it's very difficult to do because you raise your hand and you say, I think that's a problem, and people say, how do you know that's a problem? You can't prove that's a problem. We have other things that are more important to fix. But when you do identify problems, it's really important to fix them beforehand. You know, people always say it's much easier to fix the roof when the sun is out than in the middle of a hurricane. And lastly, these issues are multidisciplinary, so it's really important to have people with diversity of perspectives and backgrounds. One size does not fit all. You need a lot of different people with a lot of different perspectives. Now, I named 8 things that are important in terms of these kind of resiliency, but there's one other that I didn't mention, so let me just talk very, very briefly about the 9th. The 9th is luck. It's really important to have luck. But as Branch Ritchie, who is the general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers, said a number of years ago, and apparently this goes all the way back to John Milton, apparently said it originally, luck is the residue of design. If you do all the work you need to do, you are going to turn out to be more lucky than the other person on average. So let's do the work, and I bet we'll be very lucky and have a great future together. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, and we are so lucky to have you part of the New College community. Thank you so much. I want to close today with 2 things. First, I want to recognize some elected officials who are with us, and I want to say first how important it is to New College that we are a public institution. It is central to who we are. We take seriously our mission to serve the state of Florida, and so it's my honor to recognize Representative Fiona McFarland. I don't know where people are sitting. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today and your support of New College, and also Senator Ray Rodriguez, who's also the incoming chancellor. Thank you. We value your partnership and support and look forward to working with you. I look forward to working with you in years to come. I also want to mention other events. So it's Tuesday. We have a week of events coming up, so there's other things. So tomorrow, Wednesday at 5:30, in Sainer Auditorium right here on campus, we have the New Topics Public Lecture with Chris Reed from Harvard University. He's a leading national voice in transforming landscapes and cities. Please join us if you can. And on Friday, we're hosting a full-day symposium on coastal resilience and adaptive strategies. It starts at 8:30 right here on the 10. So please join us for that opportunity. And visit the Challenge website, ncf.edu/challenge, if you haven't, to RSVP. I'm going to pause, and I do believe that Senator Jim Boyd has just joined us as well. So sorry, but thank you for being here again. The New College Challenge is a year-long endeavor, and these events are the first of many where we'll be seeking your participation, your thoughts and ideas. And I think you've heard it again and again, that the word of the day here is collaboration and partnership. You'll be invited back to campus multiple times over the course of the year. We hope to deepen the relationships we already have and develop new ones. The academic teams that will be working with us this year will present their findings in May, and then we'll have a public exhibition of those findings next fall right here on the Bay. I'm looking forward to it. My hope is that you would do what the video at the very beginning suggested: engage with us, partner with us, invest in us, as we work to nurture resilient, transformational leaders of tomorrow. Thank you for being here, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.